Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. A very warm welcome to Meet Menaca, episode 129, Cyber Abuse with Steven Perian KC FCIArb, an esteemed King's Counsel in Crime based in London. First, let me introduce the show. Our mission is to touch and inspire 1 million hearts and lives, fostering health, happiness, and hope in every participant. You can join our vibrant 90-minute multicultural online talk show designed to celebrate each and every one of you and create a positive social change. Whether you are seeking personal growth, professional development, or simply a community of like-minded individuals, our show offers a platform for meaningful connection and transformative experiences. We go live every first Sunday of every month at 2 o'clock UK time. Join us on Zoom, where you get a chance to discuss and ask questions directly to the esteemed speakers and become change makers yourself, engaging with our community and sharing your stories, also advocating for positive change. In case if you cannot make for some reason, you can catch up on all our past episodes on our YouTube channel, Meet Menaca. Join us in shaping the brighter future, one conversation at a time. Let's talk about the speaker and why we have invited him. Steven Perian, a distinguished legal powerhouse based in London, brings unparalleled expertise to the table. Renowned for his powers and prosecuting and defending high-profile cases, Steven navigates complex legal landscapes with precision, specializing in a wide array of legal matters, from violent crimes to international arbitration. Beyond the courtroom, Steven is a compassionate humanitarian, actively involved with various charitable organizations. Join us as we delve into cyber abuse and let us embark together on a journey towards positive change with Steven. A very warm welcome to you, Steven.
Yes. Hi, hello everybody. Although I'm supposed to be in London, I'm actually in Malaysia. I'm giving this, actually having zooming in live stream from Malaysia. It's 9 o'clock in the evening, 4 minutes past 9. It's 31 degrees centigrade and it's hot. So thank you for inviting me, Menaca. This is your 129th session. By my work of calculation, it comes out to about 10 years, once a month. So you've been going for a very long time. Congratulations. 10 3/4 years. That's a long, long time. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I wish I can claim it. I know I can't. We used to do every week for a few years and then shifted to once a month, but we still have been going for a few years. So Absolutely. Let me take part of the claim. Thank you so much. And it's a big team behind me to make this happen. It's just not only me. And someone who we call the chairman is on the platform. So we will speak about him a bit later. But with your busy schedule, thank you so much, Steven, for making time for this.
Yeah.
So first of all, I know cyberbullying is becoming a huge issue and it is real. What makes you want to speak about cyber abuse and why do you think it is important?
Well, what I think, Menaca, is that it's been a long time on the cards that to a large extent, especially in the United Kingdom, cyberbullying has been very persistent, but it's not been addressed until recently, where 2023 statute came into place as a result of 2 case studies that we will deal with later on. Because there are many forms of cyberbullying, and cyberbullying not just for children and for adults. It's such a wide theme. And to a large extent, because most of your patrons or people who actually watch your show come from a wide diversity of culture, and taking it from that sort of cultural background, especially the Asian background, to a large extent, where women are bullied, they are persistently porn, bullying, and so sort of things, stalking is so prevalent that women need to be empowered and know about their rights. And this is one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about these kind of things, that it's important that women and children know about the concept of what cyberbullying is all about And that's one of the reasons why you've been trying to get me onto the show, and I've been so busy. But this time I've made some time to say, let's speak and meet Menaca.
Thank you so much. Pleasure. Because I believe as well, it is increasingly becoming an issue. And I know we have lost lives because of the cyberbullying. And in our community, unfortunately, I don't think that awareness is there still. And also people don't take it as seriously. So I'm glad you're here, and who better to talk about it.
Yeah.
So let's try to understand cyber abuse. I think that's where perhaps we have to start. So as an expert in this field, what do you think are the most common forms of cyber abuse that children and adults, particularly women, face today, who you have focused on?
So there are a number of forms. I would break it down into 5 particular forms. And the first one is cyberbullying, which is, what is cyberbullying really? And cyberbullying takes place online, unlike bullying offline. Online bullying can follow the child or the adult wherever they go, via social networks, gaming, and mobile phones. A person can be bullied online and offline at the same time as well. It's persistent harassment, threats, or humiliation conducted by digital platforms such as social media, messaging apps, and gamings. Now, the type of cyberbullying that I am accustomed to and come across on a regular basis, they can include sending threatening or abusive text messages, creating and sharing embarrassing images or videos, which happens quite a lot in our community because the men effectively, they charm the girls, and then they take pictures, and the women trust them, and then lo and behold, something goes wrong, and they say, I'm going to publish your images to everybody else to disgrace you and disgrace the family. And that's what happens. They start sharing embarrassing images, trolling, the sending of menacing or upsetting messages on social networks, chat rooms, online games. And in fact, something that a lot of people don't understand what cyberbullying is, excluding children from online games, activities, or friendship groups, shaming someone online. And this happens quite a lot with young children, school-age children, setting up hate sites or groups about a particular child, encouraging young people to self-harm, which is quite prevalent in England at the moment, voting for or against someone in an abusive poll. They seem to think like at the moment, the Korean show that happens quite recently, it's something like that. And one thing that we don't hear about quite a lot is creating fake accounts, hijacking or stealing online identities to embarrass young people or causing trouble using their name, sending explicit message, which adults, some of us know as sex texting. That's what they try to do. And what really happens now in terms of grooming, pressuring children into sending sexual messages or engaging them in sexual conversation. So you're talking about online harassment, which is part 2, the unwanted, repeated, and aggressive behavior aimed at an individual through digital means, including stalking, which happens on a regular basis. I've been a victim of stalking. I'll tell you about it later. Sending obscene content or making defamatory remarks, identity theft, which is the third part, unauthorized acquisition of use of someone's personal information, typically for financial gain or malicious intent, revenge porn, which is quite prevalent at the moment, the non-consensual sharing of intimate images or videos, often intended to humiliate or blackmail the victim. It happens in the Tamil community, Asian community quite a lot, because young girls are the family background nucleus is so conservative that they go out of it and then things happen. And something that which is becoming quite prevalent at the moment is cyber flashing, which is terrible. So those are the 5 sort of main areas that I effectively come on a regular basis when I'm looking at workload and I'm educating children and adults. So those are the 5 areas that really deal with it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, thank you so much. And not only publishing explicit images, which is true, but now with the AI, a lot of people are creating images, creating videos and uploading and trying to harass and abuse. That is also becoming more prevalent, right?
Yes, it is, because AI is so important now, because nowadays AI, the deep fakes are just incredible. If you've seen some of the deep fakes and the way AI have come into so much, there's a need for discussion, and there's a need for challengers and law enforcement agencies and other stakeholders to come together to discuss how deep fakes and AI generated complicated issues are dealt with. Because nowadays what they can do is, instead of having a child becoming doing all this lewd acts, they can get an AI to pretend to be a child and then sell it off into the deep fake sites. And that's one of the key challenges that law enforcement agencies have.
Yes, even as an adult, and people would think I will know. I didn't. If you have a picture of yours from somewhere taking some event, and if they can record your voice, they can create then anything else. And we have lost lives as well because of the same thing.
Yeah, I agree, because those are the key considerations, and that's why cyber abuse is so important. And that's why this topic today is so important for people to understand, because it affects all walks of lives, predominantly women and children, and to a lesser extent men, because men, when you think about it, there are cyber abuse, men are able to deal with it, but women and young children, they need the help. They need to look at the traditional forms of abuse and bullying and all those things.
Thanks, Steven. So how does cyber abuse differ from traditional forms? Like we were used to getting to know about abuse or bullying in a traditional form, but this is different. Yeah. So what would you say really stands out, like, to know for people?
Yes, now the traditional forms of abusing that, like when you and I have been to school, they call you names, or they don't actually think that even when you get your food, they these things. But the difference is now it's anonymous. When you think about cyber abuse, it's anonymous. Perpetrators can hide their identities, making it difficult to trace and stop them. It's the reach it has, especially the abusive content can go viral, leading to widespread exposure and compounding the victim's distress. Because the internet is not just it's borderless. And the moment you upload something onto the internet, it goes viral. It just goes everywhere. It's very difficult to lift it away. And not only that, once it's gone viral, it's permanent. Digital footprints can be hard to erase, meaning abusive contents can resurface repeatedly. So even if you bring down something from one site, another site will pop up and you have the same thing. So that's the difference between the traditional form of abuse and bullying in relation to cyber abuse. That is a key. That's the key difference.
Yeah, thank you so much. Because not long ago, my social media was hacked, and I had to shut everything down because of that. Because you never know what is going to be posted next, or who will do something. So it is scary. So thank you so much for bringing that awareness. You have already touched upon some of the impacts and consequences, I guess, while explaining that. But I want to focus on psychological effects the cyber abuse can have on victims, on adults and children, because it is huge.
Right.
And also their life and relationships, it's like really impacts every part of someone's life.
Yeah. There are principally three psychological effects. If you break it down, everything will pin itself into three pigeonholes. The first is anxiety and depression. Constant fear and sadness due to persistent abuse. Because once you become a victim of cyber abuse, there's always like the moment you switch on your phone, the moment you switch on your social media, you're aware of it, you become depressed. The second thing is, to a large extent, low self-esteem. Victims start doubting their self-worth. And most of us would have heard the word gaslighting. It's like people start gaslighting, doing things and all that. And the third, most serious one, which it's happening quite a lot, and this is something that we have to address later on, is suicidal thoughts. Because there are severe cases of cyber abuse that can lead to contemplation of self-harm, of suicide. It's happened in the last few years, from 2013, 2014, when we started becoming aware of these things and things were being done in England to address it. That's when we start thinking about, suicide, contemplation of self-harm. And those are the three pigeonhole you can actually think about and pigeonhole them into the three chapters.
Sure, thank you. And what about the impact on relationships and families and lives?
That is a different one, isn't it? Because all of us have different impacts. But to a large extent, when you talk about impact, you are talking about, oh God, sorry, just give me a moment. Just gone out of screen.
We can hear you. We can see you and hear you.
Oh, you can see
now
me.
you have gone out.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Now you
okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I just don't want to go on the screen. It's this. It starts straining relationships. Number one, trust issues can arise, causing rifts with families and friends, especially relationships. Because when husbands start cyberbullying their wives, there have been cases of stalking where husbands actually plant software into the wife's phone where they can actually follow them wherever they want to go, and then they call you, where are you? And if you tell them a different number and you say, oh, you're not there, that's happened, and we hear about it in real life, strains the relationship. For young children, poor academic or work performance. Young children, poor academic. For adults, work performance. The stress and distraction from cyber abuse can lead to a decline in performance, because that is one of the key things that when you're dealing with children that family members have got to be careful about. You've got a young, intelligent child going from A grades and suddenly falling into C and failing. And that's the trigger mark of saying something is wrong with my child. I need to work on it. Or an employer who's got to look at an employee who's actually a key performer, a key contributor, and suddenly he goes off and various things go wrong. So that's one of the second areas. And the third is, you always find this when children or adults are being cyber abused, they withdraw from social activities, and that they may avoid social interaction to abuse further abuse. So for one leg, like it's like 8 to 800, they are like all over, and suddenly boom, you don't hear anything from them, and that's when you start thinking, oh, what's wrong? And this is where people have got to be, the stakeholders have got to be very careful and address these things very carefully.
I totally agree. And unfortunately, in some communities, the community also plays a part, right? Because rather you victimize the victim rather than, going after the perpetrator. I think that's what happens.
Yes, I can tell you, I think we've all heard stories from the Tamil communities where the mother will slap the child and say, you caused this, you did this. I mean, I hope your broad church of people working in will understand Tamil, and they will I'll just tell you Tamil, this is what you did, and it's all down to you, nothing to do with that guy, and they'll blame the poor child for it, and they blame the poor girl for it. It's all your fault.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I think it's high time, people get to know about this. I think most of it comes from, not knowing about these things really, because these things could be done. So I think it's now time as a community, as families, as people, individuals, it's important to prevent this happening and protect people who are becoming victims. So what steps can an individual, you and me and everybody else, can take to protect themselves from cyber abuse?
This is the world's smallest computer now. In the old days, it used to be like a brick and it wasn't much use. Now, the whole world's computer is into this particular phone. First thing you have to do is have strong passwords. Use complex passwords and change them regularly so that people don't get access to your phone. Second thing is, mothers, parents, adults, look at your privacy settings. Customize settings on social media and other platforms to control who can view your information, especially Facebook. There's so many people in control. I don't use Facebook. I'm banned from using Facebook. As a barrister, we're not supposed to use Facebook. We're advised not to use Facebook because people can follow you. So customize settings on social media, and other platforms to control who can view your information. And the most important thing is it comes down to the individual cautious sharing. Be mindful of the personal information you share online, especially in public forums, because nowadays the society has become in such a way that it's vulgarism in public. You know, if you go to a restaurant, people, the first thing you see when the food arrives is somebody takes a photograph. I mean, that's what we see, isn't it? Somebody takes a photograph straight away, even before you eat. You take a photograph of it and zoom, you're putting it online. And that shows where you are. And then you take the shot of something else, you put it online. And effectively, once you share it to the public at large, people know where you are. And if you're any sort of a personality or a very soon to be established famous personality, people start following you and you get followers. And between those followers, there will be people who have got challenges in terms of what you are and what you look like, and they want to, they want to troll you, they want to say bad things about you, and finally, you just can't let go, and things happen. So it's very cautious sharing. Be mindful of the personal information shared, especially in public forums. So that is the steps that you can take, a person can take in terms of individual sharings, what to do, what not to do, and therefore, because it's quite important that you go through that areas.
I think in a way I agree. I had a personal experience with, like, when you go to conferences or when you go to people ask, can you take pictures? And we say yes, right? Because when you have a chat, we don't think much about it. And then little do you know, before you know it, it only takes one to go down the spiral. So you don't know who is going to do what.
Absolutely. These personal experiences are very good to share because people learn from personal experience. Sometimes you have to have this personal experience so that other people can know not to do it.
Of course. Yeah, I think even if you take selfies, if you take pictures with someone, what I have learned last year is be very careful. It's really important. So how can then parents monitor and ensure the children's safety online without, because privacy is one thing, particularly in the Western world, as you know, the children's privacy is as important. So we can't infringe on that, but also we had to make sure that they're safe. For what can they do?
You and I grew up in the era of, think about the good Bible, spare the rod and spoil the child. We can't do that now. We've got to be so careful about, abuse, and privacy is so important. The rights of a young child is very important. It's a balancing exercise in terms of tension, in terms of protection against control and privacy. How can parents control them? Well, utilize software to restrict inappropriate content and monitor online activity. You're allowed to do that. Second, and the most important thing, is to have a dialogue with your child, open communication. Maintain a dialogue with your child about their online experiences and encourage them to report any troubling encounters. Because some children, it's like someone gives you an apple, someone talks about an apple, then they talk about an orange, then they talk about an apple and orange, then they talk about something else. Then before you realize, they slowly suck you into something else. And this is why it's important that at the end of every day, that when you have communication with your children, to talk about that experiences. And I know that some parents actually restrict the use of the children in terms of the computers to only certain hours. And that, I think, is a good idea, so that it actually controls the parental control against open communication. It creates a good balance and the tensions.
And I think it's also about role modeling and also being transparent. I think particularly in certain communities, we don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to talk about this is the experience we had, this could happen. And we think we are protecting the children. But personally, I feel it's far from the truth. The more you share and the more you are teaching them indirectly. They're getting to know these things can happen. Yes. What do you think, Steven?
Because what you're doing is that because this is not somebody's story or a fairy tale, it's a personal experience that you're telling a child or a children to, that the moral of the story is, if it can happen to me as an adult, it can happen to you as a child, because even as an adult, I have been lulled into this sort of scenario. And because you as a child do not have that sort of ability to cut, dissect, think about these kind of things, that you are more likely to be sustainable and vulnerable to these sort of things. So this is why sharing of experiences becomes so important. In the right context, at the right time, it actually helps the child.
Thank you so much. So these are the individual things we can do, but there are institutions now formed for this. So, but I don't know how far they are actually showing up. As institutions, what responsibilities do social media platforms and other online service providers have in preventing and addressing cyber abuse? We know that, they haven't shown up very well in the past few years. Hopefully it's getting better now.
Well, I think we now have the 2023 Act in terms of, we'll talk about it in a moment, the 2023 Act, where there are quite a lot of robust security measures come into place, because in July of last year, where the new Act came into place, which actually makes UK one of the toughest places to deal with online security. So there's some robust security measures which are coming into place. And what we have to do is have robust security measures as a starting point to implement advanced security protocols to use user data and privacy, because that's the important thing, because privacy is so important. We've got data regulators, the ability, because sometimes because the internet is borderless, you can have data protection protocols in one jurisdiction, but the data protection protocol doesn't apply in another jurisdiction. And therefore, using an analogy, you can have all your horses all lined up and very carefully protected in one area. But once the gate is opened in the other area, they all bolt. So you need robust security measures. Secondly, there needs to be prompt address of abuse reports. You need to promptly address abuse reports. That means there must be clear, established policies and quick response teams to handle abuse complaints. This is what the most area is, because one of the key challenges we have, now we know that even if you ring the police and say, my home's been burgled, they don't turn up. You have to go online to do it on 101 nowadays. So especially with children, they're so important. You need to have clear, established policies and quick response teams to handle abuse complaints. And that starts at school, that starts at work, that starts at communication, and so forth. And thirdly, the more important thing is educate users. Provide resources and guidance on safe online practices and how to report abuse. And that's one of the key things that, to a large extent, we teach our children. When I know mothers just to keep their child shut and say, here, have my phone, play with it. And then the child goes on it and not providing guidance, safe online practices, how to report abuse. So children need to learn these things. They need to know who to turn to immediately when things go wrong. So those are the three areas, I think, that the role of institution is important, and we can develop on it later.
I know a medical student who became friendly with someone and then started asking for money, and luckily someone I know, the family I know, so they but in WhatsApp as well now, I'm not sure how many people are aware of it. You can press on the message and actually report abuse. In Facebook, there are ways to do it. But like you said, it's like a bit like the police story. How often and how quickly they respond is another thing. We can report as much as you want, but what actions are taken, nobody comes back and ever tells you what has been done.
Yeah. That's the key problem, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Steven, because I think it's important for everybody to know. So, in your opinion, I know this is your expertise, how effective do you think the current laws and regulations in dealing with cyber abuse, and what kind of improvements are needed for it to be really effective in the future?
As a result of the Morley case and the other cases in 2013 and 2017 and all that, the current laws, a lot of progress has been made in the United Kingdom. Laws, unfortunately, they lag behind the rapid evolution of technology, because technology is now up and about. It's just growing leaps and bounds. What used to be when I was growing up watching Star Treks and we're talking about computer, beam me up or something like that, is now becoming a reality. If anybody has got the new Galaxy S24, they have got a new software whereby if you ring somebody, you can actually speak in English and the other person can hear it in the language of their country. So if I were to speak in English and the other side is Chinese, whatever I say in English will actually be translated in real time in Chinese. And they can speak in Chinese in real time, be translated to me in English. So it's coming leaps and bounds. And we're still going on with the. No, I'm not trying to sell Galaxy 24, S24, but it's the new feature that I saw the other day, and I say, wow, this is amazing. See what's not
even
happened,
on Zoom now it's there. Even on
Yeah,
Zoom, Steven, you can can set it up, and people can. I mean, if you allow them to, they can then listen to it, translate into another language.
See, now in the United Kingdom, we now have the Online Safety Act 2023, which came into force on the 26th of October this year. It's quite a recent act in the United Kingdom. Now, what the act does is that the act's main duties is to search. It applies to search services and services that allow users to post content online or to interact with each other. Now, this includes a range of websites, apps, and other services, including social media services, consumer file, cloud storage, and sharing sites, video sharing platforms, online platforms, dating services, and online instant messaging services. So it's a very good act. It's an all-encompassing act because everybody's been contributing it and everybody's doing it. So the act applies to services even if companies providing them are outside the United Kingdom. If they have links to the United Kingdom, the act will apply to the companies as well. Now, if the service has a significant number of UK users, if the UK is a target market or is capable of being accessed by UK users, there is a material risk of significant harm to such users, the act applies. So it's a good act because at the moment it's being governed by Oftel. They're still talking about codes of practice that they're writing out and sending out draft codes of practice. So the act is doing that in a nice way. And we will be the first country in the world where we have a significant round policy of protecting online users. And there's also a need for updates. Continuous legal reform is necessary to address new forms of cyber abuses effectively, because one form of cyber abuse can start for a moment, disappear, and a new form arises. But if that act doesn't cover it, it's important. So we need something which is what I call a living instrument, which will actually change with what's happening so that we don't have to go back and have a new act, a new statute, or we can just amend it as quickly as possible. So that's where we are at the moment.
Thanks, Steven. I know you are in the legal world. So what legal actions can victims of cyber abuse take to seek justice or protection? Because, as individuals, very rarely do we know what we can do illegally.
First thing, somebody said you don't report it, you don't listen to them. First rule of thumb. Asian community, we want to sweep this under the bed. We say it's embarrassing. It's going to bring disgrace to the family. You're going to be in a lot of trouble. And then what happens is you start going to court. The court action starts. The family will come. The other side family will come and say, "Oh, my son is so good. Please don't put him in trouble." They'll cry and cry and cry. And then everybody has got a soft heart. They say, "Okay, we'll withdraw the allegations." That's the first thing you have to do, is be strong. So victims, number one, should document incidents. First thing you have to do is document, because nowadays, even with WhatsApp and everything, you can send something and delete it straight away. And you can have disappearing messages. You can't trace them. You can't find them. First, you got to find the phone. Even the phone is deleted. And the police officers, when they're doing searches of the phone, they have different levels of risk of going in and getting the phone looked at. So they call it level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Level 1 is just the search of the phone, where they just download it, they look at it. Level 2 is more serious. Level 3, 4th is when they go and search the phone. But sometimes in looking at WhatsApp and all that, it's end-to-end encryptions. You got things like things effectively, you disappear and so forth. So the first thing you got to do is if you're able to take snapshots straight away, and that would save the information. 2, don't delete your phones. Don't delete any of the messages because it's very difficult to get them. 3, collect the information, report it to a person that you trust. 4, inform the local enforcement agencies, because nowadays in England, we take this very strictly, especially when it comes to children, the National Society of Prevention for Children. I take these very seriously. Now, the Online Safety Act 2023 that came into force, this is very new. It's just about 5 months ago. On the 31st of January, it brought into force a number of offences. And the number of offences which will be prosecuted because it's quite serious. It's offences like encouraging or assisting serious self-harm, cyber flashing, sending false information intended to cause non-trivial harm, threatening communication, intimate image abuse, and epilepsy trolling, because sometimes you can do trolling causes epilepsy and all that. So those are things you can actually, it's now become a criminal offense. Those offenses are criminal offense. Cyber flashing is a criminal offense. Cyber flashing, snap the shot. Whatever happens, snap the shot. It's now become a offense. Now, the thing that you can do apart from crime is to look at civil areas. You can seek restraining orders. Legal protection orders can prevent abuses from contacting victims, non-molestation orders, not to contact you. And one of the things that you might want to explore in due course is filing civil suits. Victims can actually sue for damages because of emotional distress, defamation, or financial losses. Those are areas that you want to think about.
Thank you. That is as individuals, what we can do. So as law enforcement, we touched upon how long it takes for police to respond or something like that. So law enforcement agencies, how can they improve the response, particularly to cyber abuse cases? Because, it can be between life and death for someone.
Oh, yes. And it's happened quite a bit. But the thing is, think about England and think about everything else. We have inquiries, and then the government says, we want to learn lessons. We want to learn lessons. We've learned lessons. And then the police force, which was supposed to be in doing this, would come up in front of the television and say, oh, we're very sorry. We want to learn lessons. These things are important for us. And it's all, it's like, it's a blame culture. Nobody wants to accept responsibility. Nobody wants to think about these kind of things. A child has died because of their inaction. Something has gone wrong with the child. It's somebody's daughter. It's somebody's child, somebody's grandchild you're going to be thinking about, or somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's wife who's died thing. The first rule is training and resources. Those are the two areas. 4th of July is the election. And we don't know what's going to happen, and it's not a political thing, but there needs to be attention placed towards the police force in terms of training and resources, providing the adequate resources to have training, which is very important. Specialized training for officers, that's what is required. Better technology resources, because some areas are still working on, we are now into Windows 11, Windows 12 and all that. Some areas are still working on Windows 8 on all these kind of things, some police forces. They need better technology. You need the state-of-the-art technology moving with the times, and they need to handle cyber abuse cases effectively. That's what you need. Proper resources, trained officers, specialist trained officers dealing with this. Maybe it's time you have a special unit within each police force dealing with these things.
Thanks, Steven. Yes, of course, as institutions or as legally, how we can prevent and protect them. Now, how can we support them? What resources and support systems are available for victims of cyber abuse? I think, I didn't know, so I assume not many people will know. Perhaps unless and I'm the only one who didn't know.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is you've got to think for counseling services. Professional therapy can help victims cope with emotional impact of cyber abuse because to a large extent, professionals are beginning to realize that cyber abuse has impact on mental health. And this is so important because your mental health really gets strained. So you need counseling services. It's not like the old days, just pull your socks up, your chin up and just get on with it. At the same time, we're not what we call in England is like, we're not wallflowers, we're not all those kind of things, we're not snowdrops, all those kind of things, but there needs to be a balance. So professional therapy can help victims cope with emotional impact on cyber abuse because some of the cyber abuse are terrible. They are terrible. Second thing is to look for support groups. Peer support groups offer a sense of community and shared experience. That is very important. And nowadays we have with the NSPCC and other organizations, we have hotlines. Dedicated hotlines provide immediate support and advice. So those are three layers and the three underlying layers that actually help victims.
Thank you. Thanks, Ewan, for that. So forget about the institutions, forget about the legal system, forget about the external things. How can communities and educational institutions play a role in supporting victims of cyber abuse? Because we are the first people who deal with it as communities, as families, as individuals. What can we do?
Well, we're going to break it down into three areas.
Okay.
Number one, we have to look at the family nucleus and see how the family can get together, because once you have the understanding of what cyber abuse is, the family, everything starts with the family. And that's where it starts there. So that's number one. Number two is the schools. The schools have got to be more proactive in having programs, having support groups within the school areas, advertising, more information sharing, having time put aside for children to understand what cyber abuse is and all that. The third thing is for support groups everywhere. So you can have community centers, get community centers involved. They can host workshops. That's the very important thing, because you can have workshops like, a cyber abuse day, come learn about cyber abuse, workshops, support groups for victims and their families, invite people to come and to have a support group, a coffee morning or something like that. So those are the things I personally think this is how communities and educational institutions can play a role in supporting victims of cyber abuse, because that's the key thing.
Thank you so much. So technology is the problem, but we can also use technology for solutions, I think. So how can we use the advancements in technology to help first of all, to detect and then to prevent cyber abuse?
Yeah. Last year, the British government had called all the experts together because they were worried about computers, AI technology becoming as sentient beings. None of us want to deal with the world of someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, "I'll be back," kind of thing. None of us want to deal with the sequence of the Matrix sequence where the whole world is put to sleep and all they live is a life of dreams. But AI monitoring, artificial intelligence monitoring is very important, because what AI monitoring does is that it can detect abuse behavior patterns and flag suspicious activities in real time a lot quicker than what the naked eye of a police officer working 8 to 5 can do, because it's like going through one after another. It's time consuming, laborious, and you can't have that. But with AI, you can go through a lot, millions and millions and millions of internet positions and come up and flag up suspicious activities in real time. Number two, it can deal with automated responses, because the AI can help platforms respond quickly to abuse reports. So what can AI can do is that it can flag out, for example, if there's something on Facebook and the AI is spotted, AI can report to Facebook, say, hello, hold on a minute, there's something that you need to look at. So it reduces the burden on human moderators, because on Facebook and all the other chat lines, you'll have to have a moderator. Do you remember the old days on AOL? They had this chat group and you had to have moderators who come in and say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. And that would be the work of the shows my age. I don't look that old. It shows my age.
Shows our age.
Yeah, I know, but the thing is, that's the thing, you know, that's what this is what it's happening, because with AI, it actually reduces the burden on human moderators. It can actually quickly go and say, hey, hello, there's an abuse here. I think it's abuse. Go check it out. And that's the key thing. That's how AI can help. I mean, AI has got its uses, not just ChatGPT.
Thank you. So as educational initiative, what educational programs or campaigns do you think have either proven already effective, or you can use them to raise awareness about cyber abuse as such in schools, universities, and stuff like that?
Well, I think what you can do is you are looking at things like, for example, in the UK, several educational programs have been successful in raising awareness about cyber abuse. Now, the key initiatives that they have been dealing with are these. There's something called Think You Know. Some of you may have heard about it. It is run by a child exploitation and online protection center. It provides resources and advice for children, parents, and teachers about online safety. It's quite effective. It uses interactive sessions, videos, and real-life stories to teach about online risk and how to get help. There's another organization called ChildNet International. It offers educational toolkits, workshops, and campaigns to make the internet safety for children. Its effectiveness is that their Digital Leaders program lets students lead online and safety activities in their school. Then you got Safer Internet Days. And what Safe Internet Days does is that it works with, it has a particular day, an annual event on safer internet, promoting safer digital technology and use. It's quite effective because it involves schools, youth groups in activities, assemblies to teach about cyber abuse and online safeties. And then quite prominently, we have the National Society for Prevention of Children, something called Net Aware. Most of us would have heard about it, because that's quite a good thing, because what Net Aware does is that it's a partnership between the NSPCC and O2, the mobile provider. I subscribe to O2, so I will say it's a good mobile provider, providing information on popular apps and social media sites kids use. Quite effective. It helps parents understand their children's online world, encourages open discussion about safety. Then you've got something called Internet Matters, which is a non-profit offering tools to help parents to keep their children safe online. And you also have things like, I think, something called Southwest Grid for Learning. Some of you may have heard about it. It's part of the UK's Safer Internet Centres, offering online safety resources for school. Very effective. It provides tools and briefing for educators to help them address cyber abuse. Then the London Grid of Learning offers resources and training. If it provides e-safety policies. So we have quite a lot of these in England. But the challenge we have, and there's one more which is called Project Evolve, which is very, very good, because it is also it provides age-appropriate lessons on online behavior, and it helps children, parents, teachers understand and deal with cyber abuse, creating safer environment. But the challenge we have is that in our community, we have first generation, second generation, third generations. The second generation and the first generation don't understand the internet concept. When I talk about our community, I'm talking about Asian community and so forth. Our first generation don't understand internet concept. So we don't get into this. The second generation, they're still working hard to make money and they don't get involved in these kind of things. The third generation is the children, and they're the ones who are suffering. So it's the second generation who get involved in it. And how do we do it? How do we get this across? And this is why workshops are so important. Shows like you are so important, because although we speak in English, obviously second generation can speak in English. If anybody wants to speak Tamil, please do. And we'll try and interpret it and deal with it in Tamil. But it's so important that the second generation actually understand this, what's available, because there's a lot of help available, but we're not bringing it to them, because you can say, I have fish, but the thing is, I don't know how to buy the fish. So we have to teach them how to buy the fish. So that's where we are at the moment.
Sure. Thanks, Steven. I think it's a very, very good tip. We both have touched on personal experience a bit, but can you share, you have so much experience in this field, can you share any personal experience or case studies that highlight the impact of cyber abuse, and what lessons can we learn as individuals and collectively from those real life incidents, yours or someone else's, so that we can act better, support better, and prevent and protect other people as well?
This is going to be embarrassing now. I'm going to come clean, as I said. I've been a victim of internet stalking. The thing is, I'm not very popular. I don't do much online. My social media platform is not as heavy as some people. I don't do X, I don't do Instagram, anything of that nature, or TikTok. But I have LinkedIn profiles. My LinkedIn profile is quite heavy because quite a lot of work, my clerks put things and all that, and I do very high-powered cases. And because I do very high-powered cases, not only do the cases come out on LinkedIn, they also come out in newspapers. And over the year, a few years ago, I had someone who, when you're on LinkedIn, you don't know, everybody wants to connect with you. And when you're starting off, you just say, yes, I'll accept. You don't know. Then eventually, after a while, you suddenly see somebody stalking you, trying to find out what's happening about you. They follow you around there, and then they say things about you as if they've been there somewhere, and you start wondering what it is. So for me, that's where the line stops. It's like, it's like the bunny boiler incident. When you deal with it, it's like, oh my God, this is it. So you've got to be so careful about it. And then this is where, because of the nature of my work, I had to report it to the relevant authorities and all these kind of things. So that's my personal experience. But let me deal with two important case studies which highlight the impact of cyber abuse. The first is, some of you may have heard about this case, and this is the case called Hannah Smith. Hannah Smith was a 14-year-old young child. I would call her a child. People say girl. She's a 14-year-old young child from Leicestershire. And most of us would have known, it's like, her tragic story brought a significant attention to the severe impact of cyberbullying and the urgent need to better protection and support of young people online. Now, Hannah was a frequent user of the social networking site called ask.fm, where users used to send anonymous messages to one another, and she started receiving a series of abusive and threatening messages on the platform. The cyberbullying was so bad, sadly, that it included hurtful comments about her appearance. This is what body shaming is all about, isn't it? And we all have come across it. Even me as a man, they say I'm too fat around the tummy area. And then I've got to think about it. And women, especially cyberbullying and all that. So it's like her comments about her appearance, the people with self-harm suggestions and direct encouragement. They were encouraging her to end her life. Now, the continuous stream of abuse messages deeply affected this poor young child. And what happened is that this poor young child, despite it affected her mental health, despite efforts to cope with the bullying, the relentless abuse took a severe toll on her emotional well-being. She kept the extent of the bullying to herself, not revealing the severity of the situation to her family. Now, what happened? Tragically, on the 2nd of August 2013, Hannah took her own life. Her father found her at their home, and her death was a devastating blow to her family and the local community. The tragic news quickly spread, sparking widespread media coverage and national conversation about the dangers of cyberbullying. Because the thing about the English culture is when things are happening, nobody wants to do anything. But when something go after, it's like bolting the gates after the horses have left. You know, you get all this, oh, this is what happened, how terrible it is, blah, blah, blah. And so there was so much of various things, you know, widespread media coverage, national conversation about the dangers of cyberbullying. So after that, there was an outcry against the Ask FM and other social media platforms that allowed anonymous messaging. The site faced heavy criticism for its lack of effective moderation, safety measures. Now, what did Ask FM do? Their response was they announced changes, including hiring of more moderators to handle reports of abuse, making reporting tools more accessible, implementing safety guidelines to protect users. Hannah's story effectively raised awareness about the impact of cyberbullying and the need for vigilance among parents, educators, peers in monitoring online interaction. Because that, I think, is the first case which really brought to light about cyberbullying, a child being body shamed, a child keeping it to himself, and all these kind of things, rather sadly. Now, her case contributed to the growing pressure of social media companies, because what happened was that there was growing pressure on the social media companies to take more responsibilities for the content they shared on the platform. It highlighted the need for better education on cybersecurity and the importance of reporting abuse. The government also encouraged stronger regulations, but this was regulations to the regulator. If somebody says, you know, it's like I will give you £20. Don't do something, and they will say, yes, thank you very much. We'll take the £20, but we'll just reduce it to X number of amounts just to keep you happy. So they increase awareness. There were things like robust supporting system for cyberbullying, counseling services. They brought in. Now, what happened in this case is that the tragic case of Hannah is a stark reminder of the devastating impact that cyber abuse can have on young lives. And it's a real life case. It highlights the need for comprehensive measures to protect individuals online, including better education, support system, and responsible social media practices. Now, Hannah's legacy is a legacy to think about it. Poor child, she died. Is the continued efforts to inspire people to combat cyberbullying and promote a safer online environment for everyone. Now that's 2013, case study number 1. Now let's look at case study number 2, and this is the more important one. This is what led to the Online Safety Act 2023. And this is the most important. This is the Molly Russell case. You must have heard about the Molly Russell case. 14-year-old girl, not too far from where we all live, Harrow, London. She tragically took her own life in 2017 in November, not too long ago, after being exposed to distressing content related to depression and suicide on social media. This is like, you know, her death highlighted the dangers of harmful online content and sparkled the national conversation about the need for better online safety measures. And this is the key case because she had been using social media platforms such as Instagram and Pinterest, where she encountered graphic and harmful content related to self-harm and suicide. Now, the exposure to this content exacerbated her feelings of depression and hopelessness. Now, family's efforts to monitor online security activity, the harmful influence of the content she encountered, significantly impacted her mental health. This is the first case, apart from the other case, that the mental health became a key issue because the child was suffering from mental health. Now, her death led to an inquest that revealed the extent to which she had been affected by negative content on social media. Her father, Mr. Russell, became a vocal advocate for better regulation of harmful online content and greater protection for young children. And that led directly to the Online Safety Act 2023. advocacy and public outcry following Maulik's death contributed to the introduction of this act. Landmark legislation. What are the key provisions of this act? As I said earlier, there's now a duty of care. Social media companies must take reasonable steps to protect users from harmful content. There is a need for content moderation. Platforms are required to implement effective content moderation systems to quickly identify and remove harmful content. We now have age verification. Now everything comes out age verification, enhanced age verification measures to prevent underage users from accessing inappropriate content. Companies have got to become transparent. They must be more transparent about their content moderation practices and provide regular reports on the effectiveness. It provides user empowerment, tools for users to report harmful content, and mechanism for criminal appeal if content is not appropriately addressed. As I told you earlier, we now have criminal offenses already. So it's quite a good, although it's tragic, but the success story is that we now have what we believe in England as one of the best online safety act in the world that other countries may want to look at and model their online practices, because it helps the user, the end user, to regain control.
Thanks, Steven. I think it's also important to learn from these things. And anyone who knows about safeguarding will know Baby P's case.
Yes.
The main safeguard came from Baby P case.
Yes.
How much do we really learn and implement, and what changes happen afterwards? We all go for a safeguarding course. We all have self-care professionals. We all have to be qualified CPDs. But how much we really take. I think it's the most important thing is for people to learn how it impacts someone's life and their mental well-being. I think, as you said, and that's more important. And one of my mentors used to tell, and it's so true, people are much kinder in their eulogy than when they are actually alive. And I think if people can be aware of it, I think it'll make all the difference.
Nobody tells you nice things when you're alive, actually. That's the point.
Exactly, that's what it is. What emerging trends in cyber abuse should be aware of, and how can we prepare? Because, of course, as a society, we want to be safer, we want to be more respectful. At least we hope that's what everyone wants in an online environment. But what should we look for, and we should be do's and don'ts, I guess.
Yeah, this cyber abuse is such a wide topic, isn't it? You think about it, you can speak for hours and hours about it because it's so important. But looking at it, bringing it into context, the emerging trends are what I call deep fakes, the manipulation of video and audio to create false, often harmful representation. That's number one, the emerging trends. Cyber stalking is another one. Persistent tracking and harassment of individuals using digital means. The third is new scams, constantly evolving online scams that exploit unsuspecting users. How do we prepare to address these things? Number one, stay informed. Keep up to date with the latest development in technology and cyber abuse tactics. There needs to be a constant update of laws, continuous revise and strengthen laws to address new forms of cyber abuse. And then what we also got to do in terms of the community as a large, doesn't matter whether you're Asian or whatever community you come from, is to promote digital literacy. The moment you promote digital literacy, you encourage widespread education of unsafe online practices and the risk of cyber abuse. That becomes a dying thing. Because once you have digital literacy, you promote them and people know about these things, that is where it will end.
Thank you, Steven. I think gone are those days asking children, grandchildren not to use internet or not be digital. It's not going to happen. It cannot. We have passed that stage a long time back. Now I think, like you said, it is more of making people aware and educating them how to use it safely. That's where we are right now. So I think that's really good advice. So thank you. If you can just quickly share a few pointers, what they must remember and share with other people, and then we'll go into questions from the audience a bit later.
Well, the key thing to remember about cyber abuse is that you are giving your power to somebody else. And in order to, you have to realize that power cannot be given. It can be taken away from you because you trusted somebody. So the key thing is not to trust anyone when it comes to cyber. Be careful about your safety. Have safety features. Use strong passwords. Use community and cultural changes, positive behavior, digital literacy, support groups. All these key takeaways are so important because it starts with the family. So it's like you build a house, you put the family right, then you look at the schools, then you look at the community. So the key takeaway is family, it's digital literacy. I think that's the key takeaway I would advise everybody to go to. Get to learn about digital literacy, educate the family nucleus about digital literacy, then look at cyber abuse, then it becomes easier and easier and easier to control. And then first thing you have to do is when you have children is to say, advise them about cyber flashing, horns, because all too easily young girls, when they fall for young men these days, they say, "Oh, can you send me a picture of yourself? Don't worry about it." And the girl, because she thinks she loves the guy, she says, "Okay." And then by one time or another, she sends a picture of herself, and something happens. He then passes it on to his friends, and then they break up. And then he does this. It's revenge porn. So you don't want that. So that's the key thing: education, education, education. That's the key takeaway.
Thank you so much, Steven. I'm sure like everyone appreciates how much important information you shared. I definitely learned a lot. Thank you so much.
I talk too fast as well.
Thank you. Any final word?
No, I think what you're doing is a very good thing. Bringing education to the masses on a monthly basis or weekly basis before is a very good thing because it educates people, puts them in context. You're bringing in the right people. You've been trying to get me for a very long time. You can see why I just do not have the time because I'm really busy between two jurisdictions, having to do work in one country and another country. But I'm glad that I found the time, and it was the right topic at the right moment.
Thank you so much, Arun. Very kind feedback. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And first, let me introduce the next speaker. Next speaker is going to be Mr. Rajendra Tyagaraja. We are going to discuss creating new businesses, do's and don'ts. It will be our 130th episode. Rajendra Tyagaraja, he hails from Manipai, Jaffna, from Sri Lanka, for people who don't know where it is from, an old boy of Royal College in Colombo. He is a fellow of the Chartered Accountant in Sri Lanka and Chartered Management Accountants of the UK, and has a master's degree in business administration from Cranfield School of Management. He had a highly successful banking career both in the UK and Sri Lanka for the last 16 years of his career. He was Chief Executive Officer of 3 different commercial banks in Sri Lanka. Under his leadership, Hatton National Bank was recognized as the Retail Bank of the Year for 7 successive years and the best bank in Sri Lanka in 2006 and 2012. He has been and he is continuing to be the chairman of board, member of several high-profile organizations, including the Asian Banks Association, Colombo Stock Exchange, Ceylon Chamber of Commerce, and the subcommittee of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. In October 2022, the Asian Banks Association conferred the title of Emeritus Chairman to Mr. Tyagaraja. It's going to be another useful talk. From South Asian, particularly, we are slowly but surely getting into the realm of businesses and entrepreneurship, and I hope this will be really useful. I hope you can share this information with others, as well as please do attend. One request from us, from me and the team, is please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, because this will then go on the YouTube channel, because that really helps us to get quality speakers, share quality content, which really can make a big difference. That's the request from us to you. And our promise is We will definitely keep getting good speakers and share good content to you. Now, over to our chairman, Raj Rudran, to share the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Menaca. It's truly a pleasure for me to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. But I cannot say I enjoyed the talk. It's more like I was a seriously concerned listener, listening to every word Steven said. Because I have two grandchildren, one 8 and the other 2. The 8-year-old is talking to me at ChatGPT, and the 2-year-old comes and picks up the phone, takes my index finger to point out to open the phone to listen to videos. I thought the children are developing, it's a good way of developing and so on. But then when you listen to what Steven says, we have been aware of this. It's not as if we were naive. We have been aware of this, but people don't understand the impact and the seriousness of this. So I'm really grateful. So I didn't enjoy it, but I was a very concerned listener. But also, I admire what Steven has achieved. Most of us have migrated from our own countries to different countries and achieved a lot and so on and so forth. But Steven, having got here to the UK, has reached that exalted heights of legal fraternity, becoming a King's Counsel. He's not only a King's Counsel, he's also an international arbitrator, right? So arbitrator doesn't mean he's a mediator. His decisions are to be abided by the parties concerned. So he's someone to be seriously listened to. So I'm glad we had him here. And he's a living example to the next generation of people to say what you could achieve if you were to put your mind to it. So thank you, Steven. Not only that, you probably know about Steven's legal capabilities and other things, but he's also heavily involved in the economic development of the Tamil people. So he didn't mention it, nor did you, but he's into it, and I know, and I don't know where he finds the time to do all this and pack everything in. I mean, all the people, the busy people tends to do more than what the others can do, and he's doing it. So, Steven, thank you for accepting our invitation and sparing your time, a valuable time to give us all those key nuggets, the distilled essence on this topic. Thank you very much, Steven. I also have to thank a few other people. The audience. The audience are the backbone of this show, and we are grateful for their participation. It's not only passive participation, it's active participation. I know people are already raising their hands to talk about it, question it, and so on. So the active participation and very searching questions and the feedback we get, that's very important. And without them, there is no show, and the show is for you. So great big thank you. And the other thing is, this kind of show, it takes a lot of planning and effort. So just Menaca on her own or a few others cannot help. There is a team of people working behind the scene to achieve this. So if I were to, I think I owe it to them to mention their names and thank them. That's one is, not in any order, Rohan Mehra, Swati Panva, Vani Anandarajan, Raj Mahadevan. I mean, this guy, I don't know how he does it. Now it's about 4 o'clock in the morning in Canada. He takes part in every show. Well, then Tara Shanmuganathan, Sujat Correa, Nikki Chandana, and Dr. Shamili. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for your participation. And we mustn't forget Menaca. Menaca has become a true professional in interviewing, and I won't be surprised if he has her own show in a national TV soon. So I'm looking forward to Menaca. And she's a true professional in the sense, every topic that we discuss, she does a lot of research upfront, and she asks searching questions, as I said before, and also the main thing is she puts the speakers and also the audience at ease. Then the other thing she does very well is she teases out the salient points from the speakers as well. In certain cases, they don't know any prompting. Today, as we saw from Steven just flowing, but others need that prompting, and Menaca does it very well. And this, she does it very well. She often steps out of a comfort zone and willing to share even in the most difficult situation, personal situation with everyone. So that brings the participants and other people to appreciate what she's doing. So thank you, Menaca. And
thank you so much, Raj. I appreciate that.
To conclude, my takeaway from what Steven said is the impact. I didn't realize it. I didn't think in terms of that. So the cyber abuse is anonymous. So we can't go after the person who is abusing. Then it's borderless. If I'm in the UK, if I think I would run away to USA or Canada or somewhere, no, I can't. It's all over there, and it's permanent, right? So it's not erased. So even some of the legal cases or legal issues can be erased after so many years. But this is permanent. It's there. So it is difficult. But always, as always in life, it is a balancing act, as Steven said. You have to be careful. There are risks and rewards, the huge rewards with the AI. And I want to encourage my grandchildren, and everyone should, to use these the available opportunities. If we don't do that, it'll be wrong. But we need to be aware of the risk and take action. So Steven has given us a lot of pointers. So please take that seriously into heart and do something, and also encourage your children to be careful of what they are letting themselves into. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Raj. That's why we call you the chairman. We couldn't have heard a better vote of thanks. So thank you so much for being very comprehensive. A huge thank you for everybody who is listening. And of course, the biggest thanks goes to Steven for sharing so much information. We are going to go into the questions, but before that, for people who are listening to us on Facebook, thank you so much for being here and listening to us and supporting us week after week, before and now month after month now, to make sure people feel very comfortable and confident this information is not shared widely. We do come out of social media at this moment. I think it is very relevant to what Steven just spoke about. So thank you so much for all the support. Until we see how we can launch new businesses, do's and don'ts with Rajendra Tyagarajan next month. Stay safe, be happy, and keep smiling.